Hi, everyone. My name is Anupama Kapadia, and I'm your host for today's episode of Research and Beyond by Enago. I am passionate about intersection of technology and ethics, especially how it comes to AI is shaping fields like academia and beyond. Whether it's how AI is being integrated in scholarly peer review or the evolution of agentic AI systems, I'm here to explore both the incredible potential and the important questions we must consider. Before we meet our esteemed guest, for the listeners who are joining in on YouTube or LinkedIn, please subscribe to our channel. We would also like you to share your feedback on social media platforms. We are available at Spotify, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You just have to search for Research and Beyond by Nago. So that brings me to my esteemed guest. This episode is themed Rethinking Peer Review, How AI is Changing the Game for Good. And I am joined by Dr. Harini Anandhi Senthilkumar, a distinguished expert in scholarly publishing. With an impressive career spanning academia, editorial leadership, and cutting edge AI applications, Dr. Senthilkumar plays an important role in shaping the future of peer review and scientific communication. She's also at the forefront of driving conversations on AI driven innovations in publishing. Her experience at Springer Nature as a journal development manager and previous roles at Wiley and Haymarket Media Group reflect her deep expertise in journal management, research strategy, and science communication. As a cancer researcher turned publishing professional, she's also won many accolades, including the CUNY Science Scholarship and was a finalist in the Wiley Global Innovation Initiative. Beyond her professional accolades, she's also an ardent advocate for responsible AI adoption in scholarly publishing, ensuring that technology enhances rather than disrupts research. Welcome, Dr. Harini, to our podcast.
Thank you, Anupama. I think this is a very timely session on peer review. There's a lot changing within the publishing landscape. So I'm happy for the opportunity and thank you for inviting me to speak.
Sure, definitely. And I think we're all really excited to hear you speak on the topics that we've chosen today. So before we begin, though, as an active SSP member, and for all those who do not know what SSP is, it stands for Society for Scholarly Publishing. So as an active part of SSP, you've had a front row seat to some of the most important conversations in academic publishing. We've also been showcasing our work there for a few years now, but we just wanted to know what stood out to you at this year's SSB, particularly on the topics of publishing workflows and AI.
So definitely, the overall vibe was that AI is here to stay. So gone are those years when people were still debating, should we or should we not adapt,
Yes.
should we adopt a new AI tool or, that question is now gone out of people's mind. Everyone is speaking about how do we effectively implement AI into our publishing workflows to make things more efficient, flowing more freely, to relieve all the common pain points like with editors or peer review or research integrity. So that was good to see. And among other areas of publishing, I could see that peer review was one that could certainly benefit out of all these new advancements, especially with Gen AI tools. In fact, I participated in a poll, where the question was, what area of publishing do you think would, benefit the most from applying Gen AI or LLMs? And then I think the winner was peer review. Most people, including myself, we voted for peer review because that's where we are heading. I think we are seeing a major shift in the mindset of publishers. For example, the recent news by Nature, where they are making peer review open. Things like this is like a significant change in the industry itself, right? Imagine having the entire peer review process transparent, beginning from the first revision to the comments and everything that's exchanged between each reviewer and the authors. I think that's a significant change. We want such a change in mindset. So open peer review, being more transparent, efficient, and constructive. And I like that. I think that's the way the future is.
Yes, I think when they first announced it a few maybe years back, it was optional for the authors.
Yes,
right. And right now they've made it mandatory, which I think is commendable. It could be risky, but it's still a commendable stance. So
definitely,
yeah.
I think that puts a certain level of onus on all the reviewers.
Yes.
To really bring out the best in that manuscript.
Yes.
So
yes.
I think these are all major changes in the industry, which are very nice and welcoming. Yeah,
definitely. And I think it's sort of maybe it's a step towards peer review recognition. I mean, that's another topic altogether. But
Right. Yes.
you know, having your name besides a published paper and having being acknowledged as a peer reviewer is also a good thing, I think. So
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I think so. Yeah, I mean that's a good insight. Now, basically, because we're discussing about editorial workflows, and since you have massive experience in this field, so shifting from a broader landscape from what we just spoke to sort of the editorial trenches. Of course, we know that editorial teams right now, today they face mounting pressure to process like
Mhm.
high volume submissions and
Right.
quickly, and also without compromising integrity and quality. So, how do you see AI, and particularly when we speak about AI in this context, we're talking about agentic AI or LLMs, right? How do you see this
Yeah.
kind of AI supporting manuscript triage or scope alignment or early detection of ethical red flags? So, what's your take on this?
Sure. This is a great question, actually. So, as you said, one of the major issues that most of the editorial teams face is volume. And then they are drowning in this deluge of manuscripts, but there is mounting pressure on delivering on time, turnaround times. And so we have to look at ways to minimize the time that our editors, spend on mundane tasks, like, for example, checking for scope alignment or triaging manuscripts, or even checking for references.
Mhm.
It was interesting in one of the sessions that I participated recently, the speaker was sharing their experience of how they were addressing a team of researchers, and they asked, so how many of you all start out reviewing each and every reference in the manuscript that comes to you when you're peer reviewing? Surprisingly, many of them said, uh, like the overall vibe was that, are we even supposed to go through each and every reference, or are we only supposed to check those main references which go with a particular section of the manuscript?
Mhm.
So that tells us that reviewers are like sort of torn between where they should spend most of their time versus where they should be the subject matter expert.
Mhm.
So in cases like this, I think AI assisted tools, especially when you can create like a data set where the journal's guidelines and the submission guidelines are set out clearly. AI tools can very easily just compare between that data set and what is there in a manuscript. So they can screen for basic things that will minimize a reviewer's time, and they can be
Mhm.
the real subject matter experts and do only that analyzing the subject matter of that manuscript. I think
Yes,
that's a huge win,
yes, yes,
and
absolutely.
that would help weed out those problematic manuscripts at the very beginning of the publishing workflow. So
Yes,
then there is minimal chances of research integrity issues arising, because the reviewers have that full energy and attention on the manuscript, on the important parts of the manuscript. So certainly,
yes,
AI tools could reduce that workload of a peer reviewer.
yes. And I think from an agentic AI point of view, there are a lot of steps, like you mentioned, that are mundane,
Hmm.
quite rule-based. I think those
Yes,
steps would most benefit from automation, whether
definitely.
whether AI or not, but then from automation, so that the subjective element is where we pride ourselves as humans. So
Hmm.
that comes into the picture. So I think, yeah, completely agree with that. But from the point of view of red flags, right?
Hmm.
Um, like what are some of the red flags? Because we know, of course, what AI can do from a beneficial point of view, right? There are
Hmm.
obviously positive stances like efficiency, dealing with volume overload and things like that. But do they have like is there a need for establishing some potential red flags to look out for when you are using such tools? So
Well, one thing I would say, even in simple, tools like Turnitin, for example, that checks for plagiarism, you can't really rely entirely on that score that is given by the
yes.
tool, right? You ultimately have to go in and read that statement that is highlighted by the tool to
Mhm.
even verify if it has been like plagiarized or intentionally plagiarized, or is it like not really fit? Would it really fit into that realm of plagiarism?
Mhm.
So I think things like that, where even in pointing out research integrity issues, we have tools today that can give an overall score of based on broken references or ambiguous university names, whether this could or couldn't be a potential problem with the manuscript. But then it all ultimately comes back to the human in that peer review system, who has to then go in and put that thought process into whether or not this is really a red flag. So I
Got
think
it.
going just based off of the scores that an AI tool would give us is not the best way. So there's definitely the human in that loop that should come into to picture at point. So that's what I would say
Got
is
it.
a red flag. Just don't go by the scores given by these tools. Just go in and actually see what is being highlighted, and we have to do our judgment there.
Yes. And in the absence of these tools, it just takes a lot of time, doesn't it, to arrive at the same
Oh my
decision.
goodness.
So,
Yes, talk
yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
So after using some AI tools in my day-to-day workflow, I feel like earlier, for example, when I want to find out peer reviewers who have been submitting review reports on time, right? I would have to go into editorial manager or scholar one, depending on what the journal is using for that particular, for that particular submission system. And then I have to run reports each time. But when we have an AI tool that is actually going to show who the potential reviewers are for a particular manuscript based on the abstract, the title, whatever that system is trained on, it
Yeah.
definitely is a huge time saver, because you're reducing the time that you put in to
Yes.
manually go in and do those processes. So
Yes.
it's just mind-boggling what good use of technology can do.
Yeah. So I think we've established it definitely makes the process faster. Does it also facilitate more confident decision making? Or, the judgment that we're talking about, the human editorial judgment that we're talking about. Um, does the presence of these tools, does it make it, does it make, say, for example, newish editor or a newer peer reviewer, more confident in their decision making, such that, they go forward with their process with a proper judgment without any bias?
Sure. So there are two parts to this question. I'll answer the first part where you were asking, like, how does it improve the efficiency? Recently, I was hosting a talk where we had a founder of a company who had basically created a research integrity tool. So this tool would spot any ambiguous references or university names or names of professors. So it's basically sort of that first line of defense, so to speak. When you run the manuscript through, it's going to pick out all these issues. So they compared the time that it takes for a human reviewer to do this and their AI tool to do this. So the human reviewer apparently took like close to 40 hours to go through each of the references in the manuscript and come up with like, yes, I'm certain that these are the problems, versus this AI-based tool gave them an answer in like 5 to 10 minutes. And the accuracy was close to 90.4%, which is significant. So having tools like this definitely would reduce the time that a reviewer is going to spend, especially if they are a first-time reviewer, for example. Just going through each line of the references and checking it itself would, if we can have a good AI established tool to do that, it's going to reduce the work time and it's going to improve the efficiency of the reviewer. At the end of the day, I'm all for efficiency and improving the process of peer review. And I'm sure most people who have been editors would agree that you don't want to be drained or fatigued at the end of that review process, right? You want to feel energized about reading something new. You want to feel energized that you've contributed to making a research better. So definitely, I think these tools, if they are used in the right way, they can improve editorial judgment. Because you're focusing only on the subject matter, and then all these simple tasks, which could end up becoming a problem if at all the human, it somehow escapes human peer review, then these could be significant problems, right? So definitely, I think AI tools could improve editorial judgment.
Got it. So I think what we currently discussed is, once you have a reviewer in place, right, and you have a decision in place. But what about a case where there are, conflicting reviewer recommendations, which currently, obviously, if you're doing it manually,
Yes.
there will be a lot of conflicts. Do you, or have you already seen any value in using AI tools and, maybe checking their effectiveness, using systems or mechanisms such as sentiment analysis or decision support systems. Does that
Sure.
make the editor's decisions more transparent and data-driven when choosing reviewers or recommending reviewers? Have you seen anything like that?
Mhm. So usually, I would suggest that at least in the journals that I had control over, you're speaking with the editorial board and the EICs, that the ones that I managed, I
Hmm.
would recommend that the reviewer pool is also diverse. We don't want to always, focus only on the, very experienced or professors who've been in that role for many years,
Hmm.
only to be the subject matter experts. And I speak from this perspective that all of us at different stages of our lives, we all have something to contribute. That's what I think. Because an early career researcher could have a totally different view of the subject. They could look at it at different angles that somebody who's been working on the same topic for 10 years or 15 years, they might have certain questions in their mind and a set, defined path at which they think they could find answers to that question versus somebody who is looking at it with a fresh mind. So
Yes.
diversity in peer review is definitely very important. And I think that should come from the editorial office. Whereas in terms of resolving conflicting reviews, yes, we all have seen this reviewer number three, the infamous reviewer number three, who
Yes.
always makes it hard to make a decision, right?
Yes.
In those cases, I think AI tools can probably, like, you can go after those evidence-backed summaries that these tools can provide.
Okay.
So I think editors could put together what the reviews have said, and then they could run the manuscript through an AI-based tool to see what kind of evidence-backed summaries they can provide, and then
Hmm.
put together all these elements, and then they can make a better decision on which way to go with the manuscript. I think that
Understood.
I would call this a more sort of well-informed decision because you
Hmm.
have access to more than just the reviewer reports.
Yes.
So I think that's how AI tools can help in that stage.
Understood. And I think at the beginning of this conversation, we spoke about open peer review when we spoke about when we just discussed, what nature decided to do. Um, so is this because, I mean, what do you think led to this? Like, is this because of issues like reviewer biases and peer reviews, especially for, techniques like statistical analysis?
Hmm.
These things have sort of cast doubts on the integrity of this critical process that is the peer review.
Yeah.
Is this because of all this, or why do you think this happened generally?
So I think there are many aspects to this problem, not just the statistical accuracy or reviewer biases. There definitely reviewer bias, and the points that you raised are definitely also on the list.
Hmm.
Um, but I feel like for a long time we have not been transparent. We, meaning all of us, the publishers, the editors, we have not paid importance or attention to how transparent the whole process is, right? In my own experience, I've seen many professors who still think open access is not, you know, uh, or is subpar. It's not like
Oh.
good quality. That somehow is the mindset in a lot of people's, you know,
Mm.
that's a lot of people still think, even PIs who are well experienced. Somehow that is the traditional, point of view that they still have in their minds. So definitely, open peer review is a huge shift in that mindset. And the fact that a major publisher like Nature is coming out and doing that, I think is very warm and welcoming to see. As a researcher
Mm.
myself, I would have wanted this when I had my manuscript submitted. And I think it's a win for everybody involved in the process because everyone is held accountable, and this reduces cases of reviewer bias.
Mm.
And this also overall encourages the public also. Nowadays, after COVID especially, many people are fortunately reading the science behind everything, especially when it
Yeah.
comes to health issues. So I think it's very welcoming. So in future, the, the general public, they have access to how the manuscript was assessed and what kind of comments were exchanged.
Yeah.
um, so I think that's why I'm all excited about this open peer review. Of course, it will have there's always two sides to the
Just
coin, right?
yes. Yes.
We are going to see some issues that would crop up, but the overall aim or goal is that we are in this for science and we are in this for sound science. So
Yeah.
I think that's healthy.
Absolutely. I think so. We've discussed. I think we've covered quite a few challenges in peer review and how generative AI, LLMs, agentic AI can sort of do their own thing and bring about some solutions to the time-intensive nature and inconsistency in review quality. This sort of brings me to Enago's AI peer review assistant, which also won the People's Choice Innovation Award at ISNT 2024. So to
Oh,
provide
very
with
nice.
all, yeah, to provide you all with the
Congrats.
gist, yeah. Sorry, did you say something?
Oh, I said congratulations.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. So yeah, to provide you with the gist, the tool uses secure domain-trained LLMs to generate a structured peer review report that allows reviewers to quickly assess a paper's quality by providing an overall quality score, objective responses to the review questions, and supporting evidence from the paper. So it actually also saves review time and allows reviewers to focus on deeper intellectual assessment rather than the
Mhm.
repetitive checks that we just discussed. So, yeah, because one of the recurring challenges in peer review is always how time consuming and inconsistent the process can be.
Yeah,
And it's still voluntary, right? At the end of the day, peer
yeah.
review is still a voluntary task.
Mhm.
So, so that brings me to the next question. Do you think, the tools that we just discussed or the solution that I just mentioned right now, the Inago solution, such AI-powered review assistants can meaningfully reduce the burden on reviewers while actually enhancing the consistency and quality of reviews? So we're not talking about speed anymore, because
Mhm.
we've established that fact. We've also uh, covered the reviewer bias and improving diversity, etc. We've covered that. I want to now sort of focus on the quality of review, so and also obviously the time spent on the review for the reviewers to give that quality. So do you think these tools can provide that value addition? And if yes, how?
So I would say first thing is when LLMs like this are developed, I hope they are. So at the end of the day, the LLM is only going to be as good as the data that it's trained on. So it would be better if companies like even such as Enago, I'm not sure like what the backend is, but
Hmm.
if they are trained on a wide pool of data that addresses diversity, that addresses open access versus subscription titles, if they cover a wide range of data, I think they would definitely give that support that the reviewers need.
Hmm.
Excuse me. So some common challenges are, first of all, to identify potential reviewers when it comes to assigning a manuscript. Most
Yes.
of us, I think, that is where we spend a lot of time. Like we go into PubMed or Scholar One, and we have to like manually search for terms and people who have published. So let's say if this LLM or AI assisted tool is going to provide, the minute you submit a manuscript or screen a manuscript to that through that tool, it's going to give you a list of reviewers. There are multiple ways to do this. One is people who have published on in that with that journal or within, let's say, Nature or Wiley or that bigger publisher, if we were to speak with. And then how often have they published? Because usually people come back to publishing in a journal because either they believe in the journal's scope or this is like one of the best places for their work to get
Yeah.
showcased. So identifying potential people to reach out to is a huge step, I think, in that streamlining that workflow of peer review. So this is something that the tool can do. I'm not sure if the Enago tool is already equipped to do this.
Hmm.
And then even distribution of workload. I I've seen like people being bombarded with emails after emails to review. And I don't think that is fair. We are just, let's say one person submits a review and then the system should not go after and like keep sending them more and more papers to review because that's reviewer fatigue, right? So
Hmm.
I think there should be like a limit to how many invitations that somebody can receive, and that should also be done through the AI tool, which will make it
Hmm.
more efficient once again.
Hmm.
And then finally, reviewers, like for a long time, they have all been, even today or even like decades ago, for a long time, people have been working just for the passion or the love of what they do. I think
Yeah.
it's time that we reward that pool of candidates. Those are hardworking and willing to contribute their subject matter expertise. So this brings me to to a pilot that I initiated when I was at Springer. So in collaboration with the EIC and the editorial team members, of course. So what I did was we thought, okay, let's honor all the peer reviewers who have worked for this journal every year. I would like shortlist 10 peer reviewers. I would go into editorial manager once again and pull down this report on people who have submitted timely reviews, people who had reviewed more than 2 times. So then we would shortlist those 10 candidates and give them a shout out on the journal's website. We would honor them on LinkedIn. We would send them, like, if they need for their, whatever career development purposes, we would send them like a certificate. So recognition like that, I think, would go a long way. And to run a report like what I did every time when there is a need to go and see who is performing well, I think that's not the best way. So if this AI assisted tool or an LLM based tool, if that can do, like the minute you open that journal's homepage for that, in that particular tool, if it can show you reviewer performance in terms of who has been doing what, how often, I think that could be very useful in,
Okay.
in the overall streamlining of the peer review workflow.
Yes. The product that I'm talking about is just to give you a quick glance into what it does. It's a prototype right now, and a lot of the features that you mentioned are in it.
Oh,
And
nice.
it also guides the reviewers to from the point of view of a reminder or a checklist, because it follows a structured template. So of course the reviewers
Right.
can obviously go outside the structure and give their reviewer comments. But this will definitely help new reviewers, for example, early career researchers who want to become reviewers. It will help in the diversity problem, because a lot of
Definitely.
reviewers in the global south are not trained, right, in terms
Yep.
of reviewing, and they lack that kind of mentorship and the guidance. So it's like it has maybe 5 or 6 completely different categories that it caters to. But I'm glad you touched upon all of them. And
Right.
yeah, coming to the next question that I have. So recent studies, as you might also know, they show how LLMs they achieve specific overlap rates with human reviewer comments, and sometimes AI tends to be better at identifying technical and methodological issues than evaluating scientific impact or novelty. So as an editor, as a publisher, should we accept this trade-off, or is there a way to get around this and to capture AI's capability in subjective evaluations? What's your thought?
So like I said earlier, I think the way to get around this would be the data set that the LLM is trained on.
Yeah.
But the way I look at this is, most people who keep saying, oh, peer review should have a human element, you're all trying to replace it with AI. I think this is the best way. This is what they should know, that humans cannot be taken out of that peer review equation.
Yes.
Humans are made to be more efficient. Like, all these AI tools are only to help humans perform better. So I think in a way, this is a good example for how humans cannot be taken out of that peer review equation, right? Your tool can only tell you certain technical issues, but at the end of the day, it's the human that goes in and reads and decides whether, how sound this manuscript is, or what needs to be done to improve the quality of the manuscript. So
Absolutely.
I think that's the way I look at it.
Got it. Is there, because we're talking about human evaluation and validation, how do you think, say, for example, if publishers decide to go with this model, right? I don't know how many publishers are currently doing it, but suppose, some of them do. How do you think they can test or validate or benchmark these LLMs and then use them for technical checks?
So I think before they go ahead with the validation, first of all, the question has to be well defined. Like, what are the exact tasks or technical checks that will be performed by the LLM? And I say this only because the LLM is only going to be as good as the data that it's trained on. So unless we have that first question addressed, what exactly are the technical checks that will be performed by the LLM, we're not going to be able to produce a product that would be efficient in doing that job. So that should be the first step. And then, some structured tasks are the first things that I would suggest that LLM should be tested on. For example, we could ask, I mean, we could test if the LLM can pull out some common reference style issues. Let's say by training it on both incorrect and correct manuscripts with poor quality or grammar. So that's how that first step should be, like the checking or testing. And then for validation purposes, definitely the outcome should be compared with what a human can do. So the human in the loop review is definitely the best way to go for validations. And benchmarking, I would say it's like a continuous process. You can't produce a product, test it once, and then say, okay, good, we're doing great. It doesn't end like that. We want to keep getting feedback from editors. We want to keep using the product to see how it goes as more data is added. And, as that LLM is exposed to more and more in terms of manuscripts, in terms of other work that's published outside of the realm of the tool, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
we want to keep monitoring, or that progress has to be monitored. That's what benchmarking should look like.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah.
That's nice. And so because we're talking about human in the loop review, and I think humans currently also play an integral part in peer review process. I think we can also look at AI from the point of view of flagging certain things that humans may have missed. So it need not be that AI is always the first step and human follows. It can also
Right.
be the vice versa. That
Sure.
is a model I think not many people have explored, or not many publishers have explored the first human and then AI bit. So then the the stigma of possibly this being an AI based peer review is
Right.
not there, because it is doing the second person job. It is the maker checker system that we call in IT or tech. It's doing the
Right.
checker's job rather than the maker's job. I think that would probably be like an acceptable first step, into this future of peer review.
Right.
Yeah, and that's a quick segue into talking about balancing innovation and ethics. So, Harini, if we imagine a future that is marked by ethical adoption of AI and peer review, right, following all the steps we just discussed, the challenges that it mitigates, what according to you would be like an ideal set of ethical guidelines for using AI in peer review?
So I think there should be industry-wide standards to first start with. And definitely a human in the loop is the first. I, in fact, actually prefer your idea of, having the human view,
Yeah, I mean,
review
it's
it first.
interesting,
And
right?
then
Yeah.
that's an interesting perspective, to be honest. I
Yes.
mean, that's like giving me new ideas and approaches
I'm
that
glad.
we can look at this particular topic from. So that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Starting off with AI and then handing over that, processed manuscript to human is one. But then this idea of starting it off with humans and then reviewing and then giving over all the mundane tasks like reference checks or, style checks and all of that to the
Yes.
AI assisted tool is perfect too. So,
Yes.
however, I think there's no essential, like like a what do you call, like a set of ethical guidelines that each person could put forth. I think there should be something like an industry wide standard.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to come pretty soon, because the way things are moving, whether it's major publishers or societies, I think people are realizing that as more and more reviewers and researchers, they're all getting exposed to several AI tools. And there is
Hmm.
this need to set a line and draw a line and say, okay, this is what you should do, and this is not acceptable.
Hmm.
And we might see such guidelines coming up pretty soon,
Yeah.
because companies like major publishers are also, realizing that. And
Yeah.
they are releasing studies like the explanation study by Wiley, for
Wiley.
example.
Yes.
They followed how AI adoption is in research, and how their authors and reviewers are responding to it. So I think we could very well expect like a set of guidelines to be released around peer review very soon.
Yes. I think a small step that has been already taken by most publishers is the disclosure aspect. I think similar to
Right.
authors, peer reviewers are also required to disclose the use of
Whether they
any
used,
AI
yes.
tool.
Sure.
I don't know how that is working. It would be interesting to know from the
Mm-hmm.
publishers themselves if the it's it's working as it should, or the expectation, and if there is any expectation mismatch. But
Mm-hmm.
my next question is, as these specialized AI tools, as they continue to give promise in streamlining the peer review process. Um, how should the publishers adapt to the shift? I know you said that soon they'll release guidelines, but are there any other elements that we should look out for apart from them releasing policies and guidelines in terms of evolution?
In terms of evolution, I think the first change that we would see is all the mundane tasks like checking for references or broken like ambiguous institution names or things that drain energy out of reviewers usually.
Yeah.
So once that is taken out of the equation, I feel like reviewers would be more energized after each review, as opposed to now most of them are like drained out after reviewing manuscripts, right? So what drains out that energy is that mundane task of going through line by line to like through each reference or checking the style guide and other things that are more mundane. They're not really the scientific aspects of that
Yeah.
manuscript per se. So I think that will hugely improve the efficiency of reviewers. So they would spend less time on the manuscript, which means less turnaround times for the journal, for the publisher, and improved efficiency. Probably that could mean more turnaround rates when they reach out to a reviewer, right? As opposed to people who are like running away from those emails. No, I don't want to review another paper.
Yes.
You'd probably start seeing more people who are willingly coming in and contributing their expertise to the betterment of science. And I think that's the way to go.
Absolutely. So that actually brings us to the end of one of the most insightful conversations I've had on research and beyond. Harini, thank you so much for spending time and engaging in the discourse. For our listeners, here's a quick summary of the takeaways from my discussion with Harini. So, AI is increasingly recognized as essential for improving efficiency in peer review, helping to streamline tasks like manuscript triage, scope alignment, and detecting red flags. And the shift towards open peer review, like Nature's new policy to make all reviews public, is aimed at enhancing transparency, reducing biases, and improving accountability in the review process. These 2 points put together, they build sort of an ethical guideline around the use of, AI in peer review and also open peer review. Similarly, AI tools can also support editorial teams by automating routine tasks or mundane tasks, such as verifying manuscript details, which also saves a lot of time and allows editors and reviewers to focus on more complex decision making. But again, at the end, while AI can handle repetitive tasks or rule-based tasks, human reviewers will always remain crucial for ensuring ethical rigor, nuanced judgment, and high-quality assessments, particularly in evaluating novelty and scientific impact. And I think Harini and I both were hoping for sort of industry-wide ethical guidelines on AI use in peer review, with the expectation that AI will obviously and of course only complement rather than replace human judgment, ensuring the integrity of the peer review. So Harini, is there anything else you would like to add to this discussion?
No, I'm glad you asked all the right questions, and I'm very excited to see what's going to come out of this. And thank you for the opportunity once again.
Most welcome. Would you also like to share your social media handles so that the audience can reach out to you if they wish to?
Yeah, they can look me up, Harini Anandhi Senthilkumar, and they should be able to find me on LinkedIn.
Yes, that's how I found Harini, and that's how all of you can also. So, yes, before we go ahead, thank you
Happy
so
to
much to the
connect.
listeners. Yes, definitely, me too. Thank you so much to the listeners who are watching us live on YouTube and LinkedIn. Please subscribe to our channel again and hit the bell notification icon. If you enjoyed listening in, like it and share it with your colleagues. We would also like you to share your feedback on our platforms. Just search for Research and Beyond by Enago on Spotify, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Once again, thank you so much for joining us and stay tuned for more such content. And this is Dr. Anupama signing off. Stay curious, stay inspired.